Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beyond Page One podcast. I'm your host, Mickey. Today's guest is Trey Miller. Trey is the owner of Smile Solutions Dentistry, located in Harrisburg, North Carolina. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. He's a passionate dentist committed to providing top-notch dental care for the community. Strong focus on supporting the health and well-being of his patients, team members. Trey strives to make a positive impact through his practice. He started Smile Solutions Dentistry in February of 2020. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. He hasn't looked back since. Dr. Miller, you took a fascinating path to dentistry. Can you walk us through your journey from, playing baseball to being a dentist and how those early experiences continue to shape your practice today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I did not grow up wanting to be a dentist. I don't feel like, I don't know many people that do, unless you have a parent that's a dentist. That's usually 90% of dentists out there. Yeah, no, I'll get to that in a minute, but I grew up playing sports, and that's about all I did. Baseball, basketball, football as a little kid, and kind of as I got older, just kind of gravitated toward just playing baseball, and kind of went with it and enjoyed it, and ended up playing in college. Was fortunate enough to go and play, and
played
I had
Division I, right?
I did. Yep, I did, and had a great experience doing it. It was it was something fun. Would I do it again? Probably not. You miss a lot of the college experience and playing college sports, and but it was something. It was a dream. You dream to do it and dream to play for the rest of your life, even though it's slim to none as far as your chances go. But you realize it and you move on. But it was good. And then I graduate after graduating. I started trying to figure out. I needed some other avenue to fulfill the sports aspect of what I'd done for the rest of my life. So I decided I was going to start getting into. I decided I was going to run in a triathlon. No idea why. I just said it sounds like a good idea. So I started running in triathlons, and I enjoyed most of it. And usually once it was over, I enjoyed it. But the bicycle part, the cycling part, was my favorite part. And I had a friend who was big into cycling racing, so I started racing. That kind of took off, and after I graduated, so I worked for 5 years at a local government in their environmental field, and I really did it just to fund my hobby of cycling across the country and of racing semi-professionally, and from Florida to Massachusetts. Had a blast doing it, and then I met my wife, who was a big cyclist at the time too, and we ended up getting married and start thinking about kids and family and what am I going to do. And, luckily through undergrad, I'd planned to go to medical school, and I had done a bunch of internships to realize that the medical field was not for me. So I had the grades to get in, luckily, and through a really uncomfortable Thanksgiving with my in-laws, they decided that I would be a great dentist, or I think they said pediatric dentist, because I like kids. That's really uncomfortable for your in-laws to tell you that, you need to take a whole different career path. But I did. And so I started thinking about it. My brother-in-law is a dentist. Is where it came from. Or my wife's brother-in-law, technically. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, I like working with my hands. I like helping people. I like the idea of owning my own business. And so I shadowed a dentist or two, and I was like, wow, this is really fascinating to me. Fast forward, I guess that was 15 years ago, I'd say, maybe 12, 15 years ago. And here we are. So I've enjoyed it, love the practice, love what I do, love helping people, love the business side of dentistry too, which is something that I'm, kind of at where I'm sure we'll get into it later, but, more and more kind of drawn to just because of our size and scale. But so here we are.
That's really cool. Are there any notable mentors or role models during your academics or professional journey?
Yeah, there's many. It's hard to mention them all. I'd say in academics, of course, you have professors in undergrad that, before you get to dental school, that were key in kind of developing who you are. I mean, I even had one that I called on the phone 5 years after I graduated, and he answered. He's like, "Hey Trey, how's it going?" I said, "Pretty good. Any chance you write me a letter of recommendation? I think I'm going to dental school." And he was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem. I'm in the middle of a lecture right now." I said, "I'll get you by the end of the week," and which is awesome, I mean,
That's cool.
I remember he and I went and played golf one time in undergrad. I don't know
That's
how
really
many
cool.
undergrad students go play golf, and he shows up and he brings a cigar. And I didn't smoke cigars, but he brings an extra cigar. He's like, "You want a cigar?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, all right." Like, I mean, how many times, just so I'd have a story to tell. Smoked a cigar and played a round of golf with my professor in
Yeah, no
college.
kidding.
So we had a good time. His name was Dr. Tom. Gosh, my brain's gonna go dead here. I'll hit me in a minute. His name was Tom, but he's a super nice guy. But anyways, but before that, I think my first year or two of undergrad, I was just typical undergrad, playing sports, having a good time, probably too much of a good time, and I think I had like a 3.2 GPA. And I had a doctor that I was shadowing that he kind of took me under his wing. I played baseball with his son, who was a year younger than me, and we played on the same team one time. And so, anyways, I would go to his practice, and I was at his house one day, and he was printing off some stuff for me to read. He goes, I remember he had these glasses, and I remember he looked on over his glasses, and he's a very serious man. And he was like, Trey, he said, what's your GPA? And I was like, I was like, I was like, well, I'm working on it. It's a 3.2. And he looks at me and he goes, it's not good enough. And, it was the first time in my life someone's ever told me, like, I'm not good enough. I've
Yeah.
always been an achiever, and I'll never forget that. And from that point on, I realized playing baseball the rest of my life. And I need to get my act together. I think I made 1B from there. I was like in a little small course I was upset about, and graduated like a 3.8. So if he would have ever said that, I don't know where I would be. And I kind of took one comment, one statement from somebody you really respect to, really change a course. At least it was for me. From the dental side, I graduated. I always knew. So I was a little bit older going to school, and I'd worked for a little while, and I knew right away I was going to open up my own practice. And I was at a great practice, and so where I was, and people thought I was crazy for leaving busy. They were going to offer me a position to buy in there, and it just wasn't the right path for me. And I didn't want to be a partner. I kind of wanted to do my own thing and write my own ship. And I just knew it, and I'm glad. Even if I'd made less money, I would have. That was the right choice. And I started listening to podcasts. One of my favorites was the dental Bulletproof Dental podcast, and Dr. Peter Bolden, Craig Spodak, and I listened to them all, and some of them 3 or 4 times. And I just liked the guys, just listening to them. I thought they'd be fun guys to hang out with. And so I remember I emailed Peter, Dr. Bolden, one time, and because I was doing a startup, and no one had done podcasts on startups, which is very different than everything, than just owning a practice. And I had this great idea that, I wrote down my goals. I had like 5 goals that I wrote down. And then the last one I wrote down was like, have the chops to get invited onto the Bulletproof Dental podcast. And then I remember staring at it. I'm like, ooh, like I had these 2 great dentists have these massive practices that do these big podcasts and summits. And I just wrote this down. Now I got to make it happen. And so I wrote him one, and ended up, we've done 3 or 4 podcasts since then. And we had a podcast before I opened my practice, and I had one after we opened, and then I joined their mastermind for 3 years. They're just great people, great, have massive amounts of wisdom from business to dentistry. And, I couldn't, those were, great and instrumental. And then you meet so many people along the way, and some are ahead of you and doing things that you pick up on. There's a Dr. Trey Tippett down in Texas, that a good friend of mine now. He's been a phenomenal mentor, and I've even had some mentors come in, or maybe didn't call them mentors, but sometimes you get pushed from people who are behind you too. Like I've mentored other doctors, and and they're chasing me, and so because they're chasing me, it makes me want to do more, just so that I don't want to be better, but I hope they do. If they do, I'm happy for them. So
that's awesome. That's really cool. Walk me through the process and kind of the strategies that you implemented when you established your clinic. It sounds like right during, kind of the start of the pandemic. Probably a pretty crazy time to start.
Yeah, that was scary, to say the least. I leave this phenomenal practice. I'm doing tons of dentistry, and to go to a place that I have no patients other than my wife and 2 kids, and and my parents who drove an hour and a half just to be patients, and then the pandemic hits and I've got to shut everything down. Before we even started, I remember my equipment company, they dropped everything into my office, literally in boxes. My chairs, all my equipment was just here in boxes, and they all got laid off the next day. And so I couldn't even, there's nothing I could do. Masks were hard to find, gloves were hard to find, N95s, you're just scrambling everywhere you can to do whatever you can. I'm low man on the totem pole because I have no, I mean, I have no first right of refusal. I have no existence really.
Yeah.
So, I had to lay my team off before we even started. So I had to shut them down. And luckily I only hired 2 people, but luckily they both came back. And, I just stayed positive through the whole thing and just kept telling myself, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to us. It's funny how you say something, you just say it over and over and over and you start believing, and the people around you start believing it too. And it truly was. I mean, they ended up, hindsight's, well, we won't ever know otherwise, but there was, a massive backlog of patients from other practices. And when we finally got the green light to open, and I finally got all my stuff in and operational. We had offices down the street that were sending people to us because they just they couldn't get people in. They had people calling with emergencies and massive amounts of pain. And fortunately, I do all kinds of surgical procedures and emergency type procedures that it's not much that leaves our door if they walk in the door. And so, yeah, we did. We had multiple offices sending people to us, or they just can't. People would just call around till they could find somebody that could see them. I'm like, well, how about 2:00? And they're like, sure, great. Otherwise, I can't get in for months at their other office. We had families of 5 that would call and say, hey, we're trying to get our teeth cleaned and we can't get into our office until October. We're like, well, I can see you next week. And they're like, great, I'll be there. And there's a lot of them still patients here. So
awesome.
It was, it was a tough, stressful time. I think by far the best thing that ever happened to us. I mean, my goal was to day one, most dental offices will collect about 850, 900, I think is the average across the nation, maybe less, somewhere in there. And my goal was to do over $1 million in year one, which is a stretch considering you have no patients, and ended up doing 1.3 in my first year, 12 months. And so I was, super happy and worked super hard and went through all kinds of hurdles. Fired my marketing company a month before I opened, which was a whole nother conversation. But, I found out I didn't own my the hosting and the web pages of my site. I owned the domain, but not the hosting. Not the actual pages, and got extremely upset and just said, see you later. So it was a wild ride to say the least, but it's been good. I've learned a massive amount and developed a great team, which is what it takes to run any business. And so that's what I'm most proud of.
That's awesome. So with that being said, in your opinion, what are the 3 crucial elements for building a successful and sustainable business in today's market?
Yeah, I mean, your team's number one. I mean, you can't do it without a great team. I mean, you have to have. There's only so much that I can do, especially as a dentist. We can't grow anymore from me doing more and more procedures. I mean, it's just, my team has to be able to take care of people. I've got to set the guidelines to be able to trust that someone does it in a nice way and answers with a smile and gets people in efficiently and, does it, and takes care of people, because it's not just me here. It's a lot of us. I mean, we have 20 some employees. And so it's, making sure that we're all moving in the right direction, right path. That would be number one. And without a doubt, most important one. 2, being clear and having clear and concise direction of what you want personally. I mean, I think it's important to understand yourself and know what you want, because owning a business is not for everybody. I mean, it's not, you don't do it for money. You don't do it for glory. A lot of times you take it on, you make less money and, you can, a lot of times. And so you have to do it for the right reasons. And knowing your vision, knowing yourself is key to always having that North Star and knowing what direction you're headed. And last, I mean, God, you could go any direction last. For us, and you go through so many different phases of your career. It's just, and I don't really know. A third one would be tough to sum up. It's for me, I try to keep everyone in line and keep everybody moving in the same direction more and more every day. And it's just hard. It's so I don't know. Third one, I may have to pass on.
Fair enough. With some of the, you've obviously mentioned, COVID-19 being one of the biggest hurdles. Were there any other hurdles that you encountered when scaling your practice?
I mean, we've gone through so much, and I'm speaking next on Friday at the Bulletproof, this same podcast that I was telling you about. They have a conference, and I was kind of going through different things, and I'm speaking on managing growth from startup to $3 million practice, and that's kind of talking about different phases and different things. And, there's so many hurdles that we always go through. I mean, the biggest one, day one, was the marketing company, and I kind of took that over and now, and it was, I had time during COVID. I had 2 months to learn how to do things. So I said, no, I'm not paying you the remainder. I think I had like a $50,000 contract with them over a course of a year, and it was pretty heavy on the front end. And so, so I canceled my marketing company. I pointed my domain to a different website in the same day that we signed agreements to part ways. And, and then took it over and took it upon myself to learn how to do it. I run my own Google Ads. I outsource all my individual components. I don't do everything, but we run specific marketing campaigns, like video marketing campaigns that are highly sophisticated and funnels, and to be able to target if someone watches a video for more than 50%. And so that was a huge hurdle in the beginning, just trying to get over and learn, and not being held to constantly feel like you've got to pay a marketing company more and more just to keep the patients that you have. That was a kind of a big relief for me. And then it goes on from, I feel like every week it's like, what's the biggest problem? That's going to have the biggest impact on what I need to do. Because we'll never get done everything that we need to get done on a given day, a given week. And your list just is longer and longer and longer. And it's just finding the most important problem. I think business, and this may be business in general, just finding what's the most pressing problem that's got the biggest hurdle to overcome with the biggest return on investment of your time. And how do we fix it? How do we efficiently fix it? And then how do we move forward and continue on? And sometimes that's fixing things because you start having employees leave, because of complicated processes. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's because of things that I've implemented. I've had periods of my time and career in this practice where, I had so many great ideas that were just awesome. Like, it was awesome ideas, which they were. I still think they were, but they became so complicated at scale, and like they may be great at 10 patients a day. But when you start seeing 50 patients a day with 3 doctors and, and you've got 100 and some new patients a month, which is what we tend to have. I think we averaged 144 last month. Then those really great ideas get extremely complicated. Like we had, for instance, I was using a third party finance company to help people pay for their procedures, and it just the volume that we had to deal with was, I ended up having to have a fully dedicated person just to manage the one account, just because I thought it was such a great idea, and it still was, and it made sense. We've started cutting out all those processes that were too, so to speak, just because of scale. Anyway, so that's a long, drawn out answer, but I just constantly look for, what's the biggest problem that I have to deal with? How do I fix it? And how do I move on to the next?
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that's just kind of so it comes with owning a business. Sometimes I read a book once. It was called Eat That Frog. Just kind of, and it's really talking about like tackle the biggest problem. Right?
Yeah. And now I'm working on my team, doing the same thing. and teaching them that like you will never fix all your problems. Like I will always have more stuff for you to do than you can possibly do. And it's your job to be able to look at that and to say, what's the most important right now, and to have the biggest impact on all of us here today, whether that's making sure people are coming in the door, or making sure that, we're not having problems with insurance or insurance payments or patient payments, or people at the front desk, scheduling inappropriately that's causing us to not be as productive as we need to, or maybe it's a major issue in the back that something's going on that we need to work on and focus on. So yeah, it's just right. That's business, and fix it and just always move forward, over and over.
That's awesome. What role do systems play in creating simplicity and clarity within your practice?
Yeah, great follow-up question. It's I was the guy in school everyone hated most of life, that highly overachieving guy. I mean, I had a OneNote document, like a 200 plus page OneNote document of like different types of systems. And this is, I had 5 ways to answer the phone call. I just had to pick which one was the best before I even opened. And to be honest, systems are massively important for any business. And my number one with them is my son's in 5th grade. And so my biggest thing is, can I develop this system so that my son can do it? And it's not to degrade employees that you have, has nothing to do with that. It's can I make this so simple that anybody can walk into this building and can pick back up based off of a 5th grade level to be able to get the job done that we need. And,
I love
that's, yeah, that's from, step-by-step training protocols of like how to answer the phone, answer in 3 rings or less, answer with a smile, answer, take care of their problem and get them scheduled in 5 minutes or less, and don't waste people's time, and just kind of outline like exactly, and it's more detailed than that, but how to do everything, like we even have, videos of how to like do certain things clinically, so that we can start to train assistants on a much faster scale so that they can just walk by and like if something has like a cleaning schedule or protocol, they can scan a QR code and just watch the video, and I don't have to take somebody else's time to go train another person in the back. And so, yeah. But at one point in my career, I will say that I went way overboard with systems, and to the point where I had this, there was one day I came in and I remember saying to myself, like, I have made this so complicated that it does not need to be. So I got on for about a year, a massive tear to just completely remove anything complicated and to just make it everything easier and easier and easier. I got rid of that 3rd-party finance company. I had an internal benefits plan that I thought was a great idea for people who didn't have insurance, but the management of it was just awful. Anything complicated, I completely either got rid of. If I didn't need it, I tried to get rid of it, is what I really tried to do. Mm-hmm. And if I felt like I absolutely had to have it, then I would make it as absolutely as simple as possible. And that was a big hurdle. I'm about done, but that was a big hurdle of system from both ends.
Yeah. How do you approach hiring the right staff to support the growth of your practice?
We're constantly hiring. You have to be constantly hiring. And
what is your team size right now? You said 20?
About 20 people. We have 3 doctors. We have 7 assistants. I have an operations manager, and I have 5 front desk. And then I've got quite a few permanent part-time people that come in maybe 2 days a week. Just like I have hygienists. There's a lot of hygienists out that only work 2 days a week. So I just kind of pair them up with somebody else that wants to work 2 days a week. So it's about 20 people in total, 6 hygienists. And so it's, we have a lot of people running around. But, for us, I mean, I use a big proponent of companies called Culture Index. They do personality tests, and they're very, it's very feedback that I get for any business in general. It's amazing how accurate it is. I've never been wrong. It's like I'll hire people anyway sometimes, and then their personality, it like always comes back to their personality. And every time I've had to fire someone, I always go back and look at their personality test, and I go, "Yep, I should." there it was. I knew it before, it's my own fault. So I make everybody take a personality test and, to try and build teams within, and I try to pair certain individuals up together. And it's amazing how you start pairing up these different personalities and how their happiness goes up, how their productivity goes up. So I'm very clear on the front end, that I'm very protective of our team. I don't let anybody in here that's going to mess with our team. We spend more time together. I say it all the time. We spend more time together than we do with our own families, and we have to all get along. I've got 18, 19 women here. And so it's a lot. It can be a lot of things that you have to deal with, but we all get along. I mean, not everybody likes everybody, but they all respect each other and they get along, and we try to take care of our patients. And so, so hiring is just, some of it is, you just have somebody constantly looking at, Indeed ads or, and just constantly looking for a person to hire. And then part of it is I try and scrape any barrel that I can to find people, whether that's from schools or, I participate with several schools, and their assistants will run through our like one of their off school sites that they have to come through. We pull a lot of students from that. I schedule talks at where I went to West Virginia University for dental school. So like I'm scheduling talks to go back there just to talk and meet and buy everybody dinner. Whether you need someone or not, you just never know. So, so it's just a constant battle, just to keep hiring. You just always hire.
Awesome. I found something interesting about Smile Solutions. You guys partnered with Dream On 3 Foundation.
Yep.
What inspired you to champion this cause, and how's it impacted the patients in your community?
Yeah, so we did that our first year, and we for every new patient, we gave money to the program. And so it's a phenomenal cause. I used to have I guess I put up some cabinets recently, but I used to have a picture on the wall. And what they do is they sponsor dreams for kids with disabilities. And so, similar to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, but Make-A-Wish tends to be more on the kind of terminally ill side, and Dream on 3 is more on the local. It's more local, any kid with some type of disability, and they don't just exclusively look for like terminally ill patients. Mm-hmm. And, and it was just a great experience, something I loved, something I've been passionate about, because it had a sports background, which is, they gave a kid a sports-based dream. So like, one kid got to go to be an announcer at a baseball game with like some famous announcer. Yeah, I forget which one. And then they'll take kids to, they'll take kids all over the country to do, all kinds of fun things that we wouldn't even think about doing. And it's always a surprise, always a big deal, always, cameras and limos, and they just pick them up. Parents know they pick them up and they take them to the airport and they go. And and so it was as far as, that was one of those things, you don't always do things for, publicity or, that was just something that I wanted to do for me to give back to the community. It was a local organization started here in Harrisburg, and I enjoyed it. I just, I'd do it again. My team, what I found out is we started kind of going a different direction because that was mine. So then I wanted to give okay, what does the team care about? And then, so now we kind of do more of like a team, like what does the team want to do, and what are they passionate about? So we always try to, give back in some fashions.
That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah. I love that you're the business owner, but you're asking your staff, what are you passionate about? What do you want to give back to? Because they're working there with you, right? So right. That's really cool to see. Good for you. For aspiring dentists that are considering opening their own practice, what are some of the biggest challenges that they should be prepared for?
Yeah, the first thing I always do is make sure, like I said earlier, owning your own practice is not for everyone. It's highly stressful. You've got clinical aspects, you've got business, you've got employees, you've got HR, you've got, everything that comes at you. And, I always make sure don't do it for the money, because the math doesn't work the way you think it does as an associate. And you always think, oh, I'm doing all this dentistry and the doctor's making so much money off of me. And that's not true. And there's times where you're much better off just staying as an associate. You show up at 8, you leave at 5, you have nothing else to worry about. You go home to your life and, you take your vacation and you enjoy yourself. And so I think number one, know thyself, and have your reasons of why you want to run a practice. Now, if it's to build a culture that's yours, to do something that's different, to make a name for yourself, make something that you and your kids and your family is proud of, that, will be remembered about the rest of your life. Well, those are a whole different reasons, and those are reasons to do it. If you're driven and just one of those people that's never satisfied unless they're driving forward, then absolutely go for it. But if you like to take vacation and you don't like having a lot of stress, and you like investing, and you want to take your money and invest in real estate that has nothing to do with dentistry, like, you can make just as much money doing completely different things. And so, but if you do, dentistry is a phenomenal field. It won't be, we're seeing a consolidation of dental practice like medical, and it's holding off because patients still like the smaller, a smaller, less corporate style practice. Doctors definitely still like practicing in a private practice versus a corporate type practice. There's still some good ones out there, but understanding that, like, that's coming. And do you just want to be a dentist, or do you want to go ahead and try and get ahead of it or take advantage of it to some degree? And, and just know who you are and what you want to do. I mean, long term, I've cut back clinical more and more. Enjoy it, always will. But the business side of the dentistry is more, like, for me, like, I can't grow anymore, like, as a business with my own two hands. And so, like, I've either got to make a decision of stopping, or I've got to stop practicing clinical in the next couple of years. And I'm opening up another practice. It's about 20 minutes from here. It's a 5,000 square foot building that we're building, that I'm building and owning, and then we'll be managing. So pretty soon, probably the next 2 to 5 years, I won't have a choice but to stop practicing. But I enjoy it. I enjoy running. I enjoy pulling the levers of my P&Ls. I enjoy, making sure everyone's coming together as a team to do better. Those are all things that I enjoy. So I know it. It's just, so hopefully that helps. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, that answers that for me. My funny enough, so I was supposed to go to dentistry, but
really? Nice.
yeah. So my brother's a dentist, my cousin's a dentist, my cousin's wife's a dentist, my other cousin, my dad's a denturist.
Wow.
My grandfather was in it, and I'm the baby of the family, and everyone was like, I grew up around it, right? And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Everyone's doing it, and they're making good money, like. And then I realized that I hate blood and I like talking to people.
Yeah.
So listening to you talk about, scaling the practice, and I see it from my own experience. My brother, who's built practices, like, he's still a dentist. He still works with patients, but not nearly as much if he wants to scale the practice. You've got to be in the business.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, there's too much. I struggle getting through my emails sometimes every week, like just basic emails. I just don't have time. And when I sit down clinical, I'm so busy. Like, I literally will go 8 to 5. Don't rarely get a lunch, and all I can do, and I do it 3 days a week now, and that's and when those days come, I just know I'm going to be behind until Saturday, trying to catch back up on everything else they need to catch up on. Whether that's, banks or lawyers or talking to accountants, or, just trying to keep everything moving is a lot. On a small scale, you can handle a lot more. But once you start getting, above 2 million in total revenues, and 15, 20 employees, and you've got to keep everybody together, and that's more important than you sitting there cranking out lots and lots of dentistry.
Yeah, you're babysitting half the time.
Yeah. Yes, that's 100% true.
The dental field, it's constantly evolving.
Yep.
How do you stay up to date on the latest advancements and technologies?
So CE's phenomenal these days. I mean, you can learn how to do anything. Young doctors ask me all the time, should I go to extra school? Should I go to a GPR and do another couple years of school? And I always don't know, unless you feel like you left dental school and you didn't get to do much. But otherwise, no, go start practicing. Go work for corporate, and don't go open your own practice if you feel like that. But go work for corporate, and then take CEs and learn how to do more procedures. And I do lots of surgery, and and I have taken CEs to learn how to do what oral surgeons who go to school for 6 years learn how to do. I'll take place 6 to 8 implants per arch and permanently attach same day prosthesis. And people walk out with, teeth who didn't have teeth for 40 years and permanently attached, and it's highly complicated and highly technical, but you can get a whole master's degree from CEs and podcasts. So that's number one. Two, we just invest in technology. We do things like same day crowns. We've got multiple like 3D scanners for different types of procedures. We've got a 3D X-ray machine that shows, you can turn around in all directions and look at bone structure and how dense bone is. You can plan out surgical guides for implant cases. We even we'll take intraoral 3D scans with a X-ray 3D scan, and we'll marry them together with a photo on top of everything, and then we'll pre-plan implants for with the prosthesis in mind. So we're planning where the implants should go for what you need in your mouth. Bless you. And so so it's just investing in it and then learning how to use it, and just constantly trying to stay up because things do change constantly with dentistry. They call it the practice of dentistry because we are all we'll never be experts, and we are practicing to get better and better every day. So
really cool. For your same day crown and stuff, do you have like an internal lab that you have in your office?
Yeah, we have a 3D scanner, so we'll scan it, and then there's a software that scan goes into, and then it'll marry an image. It's got thousands of different types of teeth that's been scanned, and it actually takes the other teeth around it, and then it'll create a tooth, like it'll take an image of what it thinks should have been there. And so we've got a milling unit that will mill. It takes blocks. They mill it out of a material called zirconia. It'll mill the crown, and then it goes into an oven. It's got a fire at 7 in the back. It fires at 1700 degrees Celsius. It shrinks down. Actually comes out 23% bigger than the tooth when it mills, and then when it fires in the oven, it shrinks down to 0.23 microns is how accurate it is. But so it's all expensive when you start looking at the math of things and your lab bills, and there's just times where those types of things make sense. The patients love them. They absolutely love them. There's nothing better than walk in with a broken tooth and walk out with a brand new one. They look like just like a before.
Yeah, you have moved quick in a short amount of years. Good for you. That's awesome. I talk to dentists all day long, and it's like what you're doing takes them like 20, 30 years to do. So I'm impressed. Well done.
That's personality, I got a big gas pedal and just keep it down and don't look behind,
Very cool. Given your background, you likely see dentistry from a unique perspective. You're obviously competitive with the sports that you played growing up. How do you approach patient care differently, especially with those with, dental anxiety?
Well, medication always helps. But, I think from anxiety, one, you've got to have a nice looking facility. There's nothing worse than walking into a dirty, dingy shag carpet and, the smells of dental. And so we focus on all the senses, sounds. Like we try to play good music, something that is, one of the crowd favorites is, what's the band? Like an oldies, upbeat oldies type music that everybody likes. This is kind of classic music. And Earth, Wind, and Fire, that's the one. Like sometimes we have to stop that because patients are like dancing in the chair, and we have to change the station sometimes. So that's a big one. But it starts from, we talk about things like this, and it starts from the front desk. From the time they walk in the door. Does someone greet them with a smile? Does someone, talk to them? Does someone, clearly kind of outline exactly what we're going to be doing for the day? Us as doctors, there's little tips and tricks that you learn over the years. And, for me, I always, will sit down, especially when someone's really nervous, 'cause everybody's nervous. And I always try to find out what is it? Like what's, and I always try to joke with them and get them to laugh or something. And, I usually will say, well, tell me what makes you the most nervous. And I'm just like, don't say everything, because that's usually what it is. And if it's the shot, then we kind of go through that. Sometimes they don't want to know anything. Like, don't tell me anything. Just do it and let's move on and go forward. And you just try to comfort them. It's funny, I always try to tell little stories or jokes, or, I've got kids and they're rambunctious, and one's 10, one's 5. And sometimes I'll just tell a story and just to get people to calm down and relax, or I'll tell my assistant the story, and they've all heard all the stories 100 times. And so I'm like, hey, I told you what Sophie did the other day. And they were like, no. And I start telling the story and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to sell her again. And I was like, I'm talking about her new boyfriend. And so, and I'll just tell a story, and that can get people to relax. One thing I think is very fascinating to me, the psychology of dentistry is very fascinating, and I don't really, it's more of just things that I've learned just through trial and error or mistakes, or, and one thing that I do a lot is like the element of touch, like it's like if you ever have a bad day and somebody comes by and they'll come pat you on the shoulder and they'll say, hey, you're doing a great job, make sure you keep it up. Just like when you touch someone, and I mean appropriate, it's above the shoulder. It's shoulder for me. Like, it's never going below here, but like I'll touch them on the arm, tell them you're going to be okay. Or I'll hit them on the back, I'll take the back of my hand and I'll just like, hey, hope you have a good day. And just kind of tap them on their shoulder. But those little points can really dissolve a lot of things. Little things like, giving, someone praise for something. Sometimes it's their shoes. You look at their shoes like, oh, I like your shoes. Like, my daughter would love those pink sparkly shoes or something. So anything, there's all kinds of little things to just kind of talk about that I try to make people relax and get comfortable. And there's more, but those are kind of the big ones that I always work for. And then obviously medication. And, that's always a go-to that people.
My next question was going to be, talking about the technical skills of dentistry and then some interpersonal finesse and how to finesse the both. But I feel like you just answered that.
Yeah, well, but it's not intuitive, like my doctors now, like we talk about things like this. We talk about how to communicate with people. If you can't connect with people, like that's business, and that's, and I feel like the more people that we can get to say yes, and because about 30% of all dental patients just do whatever you tell them to. 30%, another 30% take a while, 30% aren't going to do it till it hurts. And so the more people we can get to say yes to what we recommend, the better of a job we did as providers. So, and that's things like, for me, it's about, like talking to people. Like I play a game with myself. It's fun. This is a fun game. First time I meet someone, I walk in, I try to make a connection, a non-dental connection in 90 seconds or less. And everybody, I personally, I don't want to talk about teeth. Like it's what I have to do. I just it's what I do all day, every day. Like you're here to talk about your teeth. I don't want to talk about your teeth, to be completely honest. But if you got a fishing shirt on, we're going to talk about fishing. You got a golf hat on, we'll talk about golf. If there's football or some sports going on, I'm going to try and find something there. My kids, my wife works for Wells Fargo, and Charlotte's there's half of Charlotte works for a bank. And so I can always talk about things like that. And, finding those types of connections are massively important for people. And that's what people care about. And that's what they want to come in and talk about. Flip through phones and show you pictures of their dogs or their last fishing trip. Or me, I'll go. My assistants will be mad. They'll be mad as hell at me for taking 10 minutes to talk about my last fishing trip. They're waiting on me for 10, 15 minutes and we're all behind. And I'm like, look at this, So right. So, but that's those are all things that are.
That's a huge part. It's you're dealing with people. It's people to people.
Right. I think that's lost. It's lost a lot, and yes, we focus on numbers and metrics and reports and, all the things that we have to do to keep moving forward and keep everyone in line. Because I have a lot of people to take care of here. I have a lot of people to take home salaries to take care of their families. And so, but at the end of the day, we're taking care of people, and, you can't ever lose that, because once that's gone, then, and it all becomes about numbers, then, then that people feel that,
Do you think, this is a little off script, but do you think the corporate kind of dental giants, the Aspens of the world, are, falling short on that part?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I never worked at one, and there's some that are better than others. Like Heartland is a pretty big one. And I think they do a pretty good job, but it's hard. The bigger I get, the more policies I have. Just because we have to, like we have vacation policies or time off or sick policies because one guy or one girl just takes 6 days off, a day off every 2 weeks. So it's like, all right, now we're going to have more policies, but we try to still meet. We try to do things like smile. That's one thing I talk about all the time. Like, you got a mask on, here, put a mask on, like wrinkle your cheeks and make smile under your mask. Like, people feel that, and they feel it. And it's important. When you're answering the phone, smile, answer with a smile. I say all the time, which sounds weird, but I say, make people feel like you care, because we all care. I wouldn't let people work here if they didn't care, but you have to let that patient feel the way you care. And so, and that's super important, that I hope no matter how big I get, that we don't ever lose. And so, I hope, but I part of me doesn't mind corporate. I think one of the best business strategies ever, we just follow them around and open up a practice right as close as you can to them. And dentists are like, oh, don't want corporate. And I'm like, bring them on, let's go. Yeah. Like, I got a spot right here, you can come, because I know we're going to take better care of our patients, and you're going to market like crazy, and they'll just come right over next door.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. You mentioned marketing and how you do a lot of it yourself, and you taught yourself the Google ads. What are some key metrics that you use to track the success of your marketing campaigns and demonstrate a return on the investment?
Well, Google spits out tons of different KPIs onto its Google ads. I mean, and there's at this point, my Google ads specifically, I just turn them on and turn them off. It's really flip a button once they're set up and they're running and they work well. I don't look at that a whole lot anymore. Just if we need more patients, I go flip it on and turn the budget up. If we're too full, I turn it down. I do run a report every month of where we're getting our patients from. So my front desk, every time we get a new patient, they record, exactly where.
They ask them.
Yeah, they say, how'd you hear about us? And it's good, and I want general terms like Google, we do a lot of Facebook ads and campaigns, which the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, like we do tons of videos. I've got not thousands, I've got tons of videos that we just run, because videos can run forever.
Yeah.
A photo can last a scroll. A video you can repurpose. You can take clips of it. You can, all kinds of things. We've run one of the best ones lately that's been really successful has been, bloopers of me like standing on, camera. It's just a bunch of bloopers. We run patient testimonial videos where like patients come in and they tell their story. It's not so much us. It's that they're telling their story. And then we are just there to give a little bit of the technical aspect of how we fix the problem, and kind of how we transform their smile, or exactly, a little bit of just what we did to fix it. So as far as that's probably one thing I'm not great at, is like the actual like detailed metrics of it. But I definitely look. We drive probably 75% of our, don't tell Google this, but 75% of our patients typically come from Google, either an organic Google search, or a Google ad click, which it's hard to tell which one came from which. I'm not running too much of like, landing pages and data. I'm not going that far with it.
Yeah.
If it works,
them to your regular site.
Yeah. I'm looking at what did I spend overall for Google? How many patients did I generate from it? What's my patient acquisition from Google? YouTube, Instagram, same thing. It's dirt cheap to advertise on YouTube, Instagram. And occasionally my son will see me on YouTube and I can bring a picture and say, Dad, I saw you on YouTube. And I'm like, yes, I made it.
It's like, wait, did you make it, or is your targeting bad because a 10-year-old is seeing it?
Right. But then he goes, well, how many followers do you have? I was like, I don't know. I think like 15 million watched that video. And he was like, or something, or 15,000, or not million. It was, I thought it was a high number. Yeah. And he was like, well, Mr. Beast has like 20 million followers. And I'm like, cool. He's not a dentist.
Give it away with Teslas.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. What's something that's been the most surprising or unexpected lesson that you've learned throughout your career so far?
I think the most important thing in business is having grit. I think that was what I didn't realize, how hard it was going to be to run your own business. to come in day after day, do the things you don't want to do because you have to do it, and because that's what your business needs, and to, take on massive amounts of debt. And, with this new building, I've got over $3 million in debt right now. And just to stomach that type of debt service and a family that you have to take care of at the end of the day. And, and to just fight through all the struggles. I mean, that's really the biggest thing that I've learned. And it's probably been, something that's just been, my past has taught me, luckily, to push through those and to have, the fortitude to just keep going day after day. I mean, you go through periods of, borderline depression because of how hard things can get at times and how much you have on your plate. And, and then being able to still, show up and put a smile on and make everybody around you, your patients, your employees, feel happy and appreciated, even though deep down you're just grinding through it. And, and that was probably, the biggest surprise for me is how hard it was going to be. Like, I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't know how hard, until you start sitting up at midnight, and you can't sleep because you're trying to work through something for a week on end, and that's been the one thing that's kind of overarching. I mean, obviously there's millions of little things that you go through every day, but no one can ever prepare you for how hard it's going to be.
Fair enough. Is there like an end goal in sight for you? Because you said, you started a small clinic, then grew it, now opening up a second location. Someone says, Dr. Miller, what's the end goal in sight here?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, reducing clinical time and running the business. Yeah. I mean, that's, and I love it. I love practicing. I love doing surgery, and, and I'm sure if I stopped, I'd miss it. And, I don't really have any ambition to be massive corporate. Larger scale, yes. I mean, and part of that's just so that you can continue to compete with these larger corporate offices that are coming in, and you can have the new technology and afford it, and have the volume to be able to, to justify having it. And, obviously, I mean, it's a business. And so, yeah, one day is to, sell it and, move on and do something different. And will that be anytime soon? Absolutely not. The goal is really to set it up to where you don't want to sell it, Yeah. I mean, where it runs and operates, and you've got people in place to do it. And then, you can start taking more time with your family or investing in real estate, which I really enjoy doing. And I love real estate. We've invested in a few real estate projects in other parts of the country. Now I'm doing one for owner occupied, and that's exciting. It's fun for me. And, so I mean, that would be the end goal. I mean, I'd be lying if I said here, it wasn't to sell, but, why else are you, running a business?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I feel like you either have a job that you work in your business, or you can own a business that you run, And so otherwise you're just an employee of your own business, unless you have something that runs without you there.
All said. All right. Last question. Looking back at your journey, what advice would you give to an aspiring dentist or entrepreneur who's just starting out their career?
Yeah, I think dentistry is a phenomenal career. And I think, most medical doctors say they wish they'd have gone to dental school. So if you want to do it, do it. And if you want to do it, you definitely can do it. I had massive reservations of, am I smart enough to do this? And I always assumed that doctors and dentists and lawyers were these extremely intelligent people that were so gifted and intelligent that it was easy for them. And it's not true. Dentists, doctors, all professionals just work really hard to get where they are. That's it. If you work really hard, you can make good enough grades to get in if you work hard enough. And, I had one friend in class that I would joke with, who was number one in our class, that he could take a highlighter and just highlight the page and it would just go to his brain. And, everybody else, they spent 10, 12-hour days. They studied till midnight every day till they fell asleep. So if it's something you want to do, absolutely do it. Find a mentor, find somebody that you like and respect that can help you along the way. in any avenue, dentistry, business, anything, because there's people that have been in your shoes, have walked your same path, and can tell you what to do, what not to do, and and how to fast track you to a better and happier result of exactly where you want to go. So if you want to do it, do it. I still think it's a phenomenal career, and I don't think that's going to end for the next 20 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trey. Really appreciate your time today. We're going to be posting this, obviously. I'm going to be attaching all of your socials to it as well. So if people do have questions for you, I'm sure you'll be happy to answer any of them as well.
Absolutely.
And yeah, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mickey.